Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another exciting podcast interview. I have Aharon from Full Path. He's the leader of an organization that's transforming automotive retail by helping dealers unify, clean, and activate their data. But that's not an easy task. And here we are a few years later into the CDP evolution, soon to become a revolution. And so it's time to sit down with Aharon and ask him some questions. Welcome to the show.
It is always a pleasure to be here, Brian. Thank you for having me back.
You know, I loved, I think it was 2 years ago when you really did a powerful keynote address and really talked about your vision for Full Path and, you know, the opportunities that dealers have. At that time, we talked about AI, we talked about marketing activation, we talked about personalization. And, you know, I don't know if it's been like a little sine wave, you know, we seem to be making some progress in the CDK, you know, data breach happened and then, you know, starting to make some progress. And then some people who promised to open up APIs haven't done it. You know, it seems like a few times over these last 2 years, we thought we were going to have a breakout and then not. Let's start with AI. I think today people are more comfortable. They're starting to understand that AI isn't hype. How are you explaining it to dealers in regards to how they can leverage this technology to transform, you know, communications, customer service, and marketing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I'll say to your first point about the journey, you know, and the sort of trials and tribulations of trying to advance an industry, which you're well familiar with. I think that the API issue still remains very sluggish, and despite all the advocacy that, you know, people like yourself, you know, like in the book we published at the last dealership and other from other fronts, it's very difficult to get that done. And I do continue to suggest that it become more of a priority from like the powers that be it NADA, be it OEMs, talk about having open AIs and encouraging that and rewarding that. And I think like what you guys did with ASC, with the Automotive Standards Council, that's like a model that you would want to see for you know, for other aspects of the technology ecosystem. And I think that's something that has to get done. When it comes to AI, I think that dealers are comfortable now with AI in theory. We just ran a survey. I just saw the initial results, and in a very large percentage of dealers seem to really be embracing the fact that that will become part of their ecosystem, even if it is not.
Sure.
And I'm sure you're seeing that as well. I think that for dealers, the way we describe it is that there's really two kind of core nexi for the dealer in AI. One is going to be internal business processes. It's possible to use some of the generative AI tools to simplify things like understanding, you know, how to do a deal, building training. I mean, there's all these different tools that'll work for dealers within the dealership's four walls that will never be seen or felt by the customer, but it will make things faster and easier. And then the other interface point is going to be with the customer itself. And they're like all of our outreach now is or will be running off of generative AI. So it could be messages on the website. It could be emails and SMSs that go out. It could be back and forth on SMSs. I mean, we do a huge amount of just SMS chatting, and the person really does feel like they're talking to a person, which is a wonderful thing. And then, you know, you want to bring it to a point where there's some sort of either next action slotted into the marketing automation journey that can be done by the machine or an individual in the dealership as part of their CRM flow or what have you, or you want to actually log an appointment and schedule something. So I think that those two different interfaces of the internal business process and then the customer-oriented touch points, which people often call all this sum it up with agents, is what we're going to see. I know we have a few running. There's other companies. We're going to be releasing a few over the next 2 quarters that'll be exciting for dealers, and I think it's going to help dealers a lot. I'll tell you one thing, Brian. We think about the sales teams at dealerships, and we all walk into sales floors, and I imagine every salesperson there is on the one hand thinking, well, I could go make outbound calls while I'm in between ups, right? But what's the chance that one of those outbounds is going to turn into anything? And then maybe they, are tempted to read the news on their phone or hang out or whatnot, right? We think that we
That's
can
right.
actually have agents function as like wing people of salespeople,
Yep.
and help encourage them to use their time more effectively by suggesting the best opportunities to actually reach out to. That's one example. Another example to make this, concrete, is that there's a great deal of signals that are happening and insights about a shopper. The salesperson can't read the whole file in CRM and every
No.
track. Generative AI agents can kind of take the best of it, sum it up, and either prepare it to go out or actually send it, right? So like those are the types of things that are going to happen all the time as we go forward.
Aharon, you talked about a few things that I'm excited about as well, and that is utilization of employee time. Listen, we've had notes in the CRM. We've had training that people should put notes in the CRM, but man, you shove into a CRM record the customer journey with all their touch points and what pages and which cars. I mean, people have tried this before, right? It's just overwhelming. There's not been let's just say, a practical tool that has been able to take this tremendous amount of data and summarize it into something intelligent and actionable. So AI is there. But one other thing that I'm seeing is knowing when existing customers are back on the website. And I think that I've written about this. I believe it can double the sales opportunities that a dealership sees each month, because we have the ability over time through deterministic identity resolution, and some dealers are even using probabilistic identity resolution. But during that shopping cycle, whether you believe it's 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, people are back on the website. They may not be answering that salesperson's emails. The salesperson has no idea if their emails are even getting to them. But I think that in a real practical way, if there was an SMS tool, right, that could take a look at which consumers are assigned to which salespeople, reach out to that person in real time when they're back on the website, encourage a connection with the salesperson. I think this is going to be a breakthrough, because right now I've been testing, when an existing customer starts to use a trade tool and abandon, or when someone starts to service a scheduler, one of the service schedulers my clients use, only 35% of the people finish it. Well, at the beginning of the service scheduler, they fill out their email, they put in their email. We're finding amazing customer service opportunities when someone calls the customer, who the 65% a month who abandon the service scheduler, and saying, hey, see, you started the service scheduler and you weren't able to finish it. Can I just help you book that right now? These are the insights that dealers never had before, but you have an identity resolution layer. You have the ability to set triggered communication. Are you with me in this idea that for years, e-commerce companies have triggered actions for abandoned shopping carts? But now in automotive, with identity resolution and that integration with the tools, dealers can start to reach out to existing customers in new ways they never had ability to do before.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good insight. I'll introduce a concept that we talk about a lot internally and with our dealers. We call it a CDP up, or data up. And, if you think about the auto industry, really there's three there's been three traditional ups since the dawn of the internet.
Yep.
Maybe there's one before I didn't know about, but there's a phone up, there's a showroom up, there's a or drive by, and then there's a internet up. But the
Yeah.
reality is that uh, up framework is relying, and by the way, there's loyalty for people who bought things, but let's put them aside for a minute, right? But that up framework is relying on an extremely reactive approach to engaging customers, right? So I have to raise my
That's right.
hand and then gets up and talks to me. Most businesses, business analogs to dealers out of automotive maintain a very strong outbound or proactive component to their sales. And so you would never expect in a, again, equivalent business out of auto to have someone visit the website who you've resolved their identity. So they may visit, they may not fill out a form, but let's say they were a customer 7 years ago and they're back, right? They're buying a boat or whatever. I don't know. Anyways,
Yep.
they're back. You would never just assume that should just hopefully one day become an up. So now full path, again, speaking about us, there's others equivalent, as we always say, we're not the only player, but we do what we do. We're always nurturing those that 10 years of history. We're dropping SMSs to them, as you pointed out. We have dynamic audiences. So if they come back to the website, even if they don't fill out a form, they're getting a different SMS, a different email. But guess what? There are people who just aren't going to convert from the digital touches. Okay. They're not.
That's right.
But we know that they were there, they were shopping, and you know what? They're showing buying behavior 10 times better than a typical trade-in lead, for example. So I want to know that my humans at my cyborg dealership, right? The dealership's half human, half machine. I want to know that my humans almost have a different layer of glasses, right? They're all out there in the streets. They're putting up signs. They're saying, come to Pash Autos, and they're paying Google and Facebook for that third-party traffic, which is frankly really people they already have in their database. And right behind them, they just can't see it because they have the wrong glasses on. There's hundreds of people walking through the showroom, the digital showroom. So
Right.
what we need the AI to do is to give them the glasses. First of all, do all the work to try to get those people to raise their hand and join them on the dimensional plane, the up plane. But guess what? They're not going to come up. There's always going to be several hundred people a month in most dealerships who aren't going to become ups. Let's tell the salesperson, here's all the info. Here's what they're doing. Frankly, they're calling your competitors. Call them, make a check-in, have a nice conversation, be friendly.
Yes.
Use your
Yes.
humanness to actually drive it, and maybe that's what'll push them over. So that's the direction like we're driving our AIs, is to do all the stuff behind the scenes automatically, constantly nurture, but be that wingman for the salespeople, the BDC, to say, look, this is
Perfect.
what's going on where you can't see below the waterline. Here's 3 things you should do, and then do it. We don't need you to go read a whole history. By the way, we've already tried the AI, right? We tried. We SMS'd, we this. They didn't. Now it's the human's turn. Go get that person. That's where the salespeople should really excel. Now, by the way, Brian, we played with, just for fun, we took all these voice AIs that are out there now, and we just ran
Yep.
with friends. We got a bunch of our friends to be car buyers, like literally just random people I know in America throughout Cleveland, Ohio. And I was like, I'm going to have a thing call you and try to handle a car buying conversation. And it wasn't there yet, but one day, I mean, it's interesting where this will go. I don't know. So,
Well, I'm working on a new article that talks about the technology solutions that I believe are missing.
okay.
And of course, you've been working on this, but you've been more successful in scaling and accelerating development than others. And I think it's because you have a great development team. Okay. You have a clear vision on what you want to accomplish. And right, it wasn't clear at the beginning. Your company and its foundings had a number of twists and turns. I think where you've landed today is exactly spot on what dealers need. But having real-time activation technology is a gap. So you mentioned this, plane of operation on the leads, right? Leads is reactionary. People are on the website. You hope they convert. And I recently wrote about this
In an
that
email. All those actions that you guys are now also driving events for out of ASC, any one of those on the site, or frankly, in any of the wide world of digital touch, if you had a Pixel or a relationship with Auto Trader with cars, you could do it even on there. Again, it's all about that. Again, closed API ecosystem makes it difficult, but your point stands that like that there's information about things happening you don't see.
Yeah, and so we've been so lulled into chase, right? Someone comes to our website, force them lead, then we chase them, and it's amazing what the chasing looks like. Then we have to put people behind phones, and then they're getting voicemail, and they're getting blacklisted because their phone, system is running 10,000 calls a month through 3 outbound lines. There's all sorts of technology problems, but when you have a CDP that's collecting real-time information on shoppers when they're back, when something has changed in their family, dealers are going to need partners that can trigger that SMS message and just not send a message, but have a conversation. Listen, trigger an outbound call through AI and have some initial conversation. I've seen some of the new voice tech. I've just recently this week had an AI voice tech platform call me following up on a trade lead I put in. It was a test, and I put in what vehicle, and the AI called me and said, I see you're interested in getting selling us your, 2019 Honda Pilot. And I tell you, the conversation was pretty good, not perfect.
Almost there, right? You're like a step away from it working. Yeah.
Yeah. But here's what I think. The future of a dealership operating efficiency is, okay, getting all your customer data in one place, data hygiene, we'll talk about that in a minute, then connecting all the touch points, all the possible channels in which you can measure the engagement of those consumers. And then the question is, since you're getting that data in real time, can your human staff respond in real time? And for the most part, they can't. And so everything is chase. So I think the future is really helping to understand dealers that a CDP is basically just, or in its best case, a real-time picture of where the customer is. And then you have to figure out what are you going to do with that data. And I think what's missing is real-time engagement on call 24/7 that can replace a lot of the monotonous human behavior. And we're close, but man, I think in the next year, Aharon, we are going to start to see more outbound calls that are confirming and booking service, more outbound calls that are, oh, I see you, abandoned the trade. Would you like a price on your car? I think that's not far away. And that's going to really allow, as you mentioned, the humans to really pick up those people who are ready to take action and stop wasting time in the dealership.
So I very much agree with you, and and I can see a lot of those things in our software, which is usually a little bit ahead of the wave. But like as you pointed out, what would help is APIs. That would help a lot because then you can bring in more signals and trigger things. Then connected marketing automation, as we all know, again, you always talked about with FullPath that FullPath has our data infrastructure, and then we had our marketing automation, and this year we decoupled those. So you can now use our data infrastructure with a different marketing automation, but you do need them to be connected. So while we provide APIs out, we provide APIs out, pre-formatted Google, Facebook, or just raw. If you want to use it with a different software, we provide obviously all the export tools. We don't think that the marketing automation infrastructure in the industry is able to ingest the data tables and input those into the marketing in the most intelligent way, unless, like right now, ours can do it because we built them together, right? So that's great, but I can't name yet tools that like can just take from us a feed and they know what to do with. That has to be built out if you really want to have a robust ecosystem. Yep. Or frankly, you could use our APIs and stuff from out of auto if you want to bring it in, right? That we have some examples of dealers that are now thinking about doing that. And then finally, a lot of flexibility for manual custom stuff. So dealers are creative people, dealer marketers are creative people. When they get a rigid system that they can't, create a manual, I don't know, list.
Audience.
Yeah. They got to be able to do it. And I think that that's another piece that's also missing in some of these systems, that putting those tools at their fingertips is really important. And then again, as you point out, like a lot of this is automated already. More will be automated. And I think the key question is when to use the human most effectively and how to operate and activate them in a way that they feel good and are adding value, but they're doing things that they bring unique value to. So I think an example is someone who's not responding to all the digital outreach that the machines are doing.
Right.
Pick up the phone and call. As you pointed out, yes, you
That's
can
right.
get a voice AI. It's still not as warm as a real human who's talented at calling yet. It's not there yet. So for now, let's try that. Obviously, when someone walks in the door, that's a huge a moment and opportunity, you know. And if you think about it, like what's going to happen in my view over the next year, 2 years, is that right now you have, if you think about the architecture, like third-party data, first-party data, showroom, right? And there's an enormous amount of budget in third party, enormous.
Yes.
And no, Google advertising, Facebook, now Amazon, the whole world where advertise all third-party stuff, huge money's going there. First party, there's auto alert, there's full paths auto audience engagement, there's a mastermind. There's not as much there on the real first party one-to-one. You know, I'm aiming at Brian. It's all about Brian. There's
Right.
a lot of tools there. And then in the showroom, right, there's the people. And you know, some tools. I think Roadster made a thing for the showroom. A few companies have done things in the showroom, but there's not a lot of stuff in the showroom. It's there's the people now in the vehicle, which is the best product, right? So I think that what's going to happen is about 20 to 30% of the efforts that are in third party are going to start moving to first party because that's where the real juice is. And in a sense, what's happened is the third party is kind of going backwards. They're becoming almost like the black box that existed pre-digital. So if you think about like those old sayings in marketing, I don't remember how it goes, but like I have up a billboard, you know, 100,000 people came in. I just don't know like which half of the 100,000 people were from the marketing or not. If I did, I could, you know,
That's right.
so digital came in and said, "Oh, here you go. We give you clear transparency." But guess what? Everything's becoming more of a black box. Everything is becoming, you know, more hidden, more you know, it's all behind the curtains now. And frankly, we know dealers have most of their market in their CRM, in their DMS. So let's invest more in first party and use third party to enrich our data and keep our brand strong. That's what's going to happen over the next year or 2 years, in my opinion.
Well, and the reason why that's going to happen is because dealers finally have a product to manage their own data. So I want to be very clear for the dealers who are listening. Right now, the two primary data tools in a dealership are the CRM and the DMS. There was a time when dealers weren't really using a CRM. I know that sounds like a long time ago, but in the early days of CRM, there were some dealers like, oh, I don't want to use a CRM. And now it's a standard operating tool. That's what the CDP is going to be. The CDP is going to allow a dealer to effectively manage their first party data. As you mentioned, have less reliance on spray and pray, less reliance on third party audiences. They will build identity. They will resolve local customers. They, especially those who have multiple stores in a market, they will build a local identity graph for auto shoppers. They will have more tools to identify real shoppers, active shoppers, and reach out to them. The CRM was never managed or designed for that, neither was the DMS. So anybody who poo-poos and says, oh, the CDP, I don't need it, you are just literally setting yourself up for conquest, because here's what I know from the CDP projects that I'm working on. Not only are we cutting costs, which makes those stores more profitable and able to invest, but we're doing things that no one's ever done before because the CRM and the DMS and the website company never provided these insights. And
Correct.
so it's happening. One of the things that still is a challenge is that dealers have never, ever, ever, ever had to develop any skills inside the dealership about data hygiene. What are the rules for updating data? What do I do when I send out an email and it bounces? Sadly, I don't think dealers have realized this, but the culture in auto dealership is, yeah, email's important, but when it goes bad, who cares? Because they know that they send out emails, they know that emails bounce, they know that some emails are now spam traps, and yet they've done nothing about it. So I think that most people who've invested in the CDP project know the biggest learning curve wasn't marketing activation, wasn't identity resolution, but who are the partners that are going to use the clean? They have to spend money to clean it. And then after that initial data hygiene, how are they going to keep it up to date? Do you agree with me that dealers really need to be thinking about and building skills to put together a plan for data hygiene?
No question, it's critical. The biggest service that this whole CDP thrust will deliver to dealers ultimately will be clean, resolved identities that are more up to date on shopper records. Because without that, you just annoy your customers. You send the wrong message to the wrong. You send the same person on 3 different email addresses, totally different messages, and you call their mother when they've lived out of the house for 10 years, and you're talking about cars that they don't even own. And again, and like as someone who's in the space, I mean, it's not. I mean, we've looked at, hooked into, and or assessed most of the big data providers. And as you know, Brian, from your own projects, we've discussed this. It's not so easy to like say, oh, this is the best database. Here you can get everything you need. You really are playing a game here of sort of jigsaw puzzle, where you have to
Yep.
piece together a data hygiene strategy. But there's very basic things that one can do. If you have email addresses that are malformed, flag them. Someone should then go just call that person and get the right email address, or send a tool to do that, right? Or if
Right.
you have 3 records of a person, well, you need to make sure that again you're working with a CDP that will merge those into one shopper record, and do it either, as you pointed out, deterministically, which is fancy language for on a hard point, like okay, it's the same phone number, probably the same person. Is that always true? Not always, but often. It's same email. Is that true? More often, so, or on a probabilistic level, which can get a little more tricky. Sometimes you merge, you merge the wrong people into the same, and then you have to unmerge them. So again, data hygiene is critical. I do want to speak to the expense, and this is something that I think is
Yes.
very realized. You said that your CDP projects are driving efficiency and reducing expense, and I fully believe that and agree with that. I believe that third-party expenses, third-party data expenses, all the stuff we do, it's equivalent now to spray and pray. Like Google advertising has basically become spray and pray on some level, right? That is far more expensive than what's going to happen when we're able to lock in on the CDP and just pick out great leads from within your own data, great sales opportunities, not even
Yes.
because what does it take for a Google lead? You need 3 to 4 leads to turn into a sales op. Okay, that costs a bunch
Yep.
of money. Well, I can point at someone browsing your website right now who you don't even know about. I have their whole history at my fingertips. I can mine that data out, float it up with as we pointed out, the correct data, hygiene data. That's valuable, and that costs way less than getting that same lead from Google.
Amen.
But it
Amen.
still costs money. It still costs money. This is where I'm going to say dealers have to understand that the software, the hygiene, the mining, the AI tokens, on the one hand, are much more efficient than what it costs to do third-party marketing. On the other hand, they're still expensive, and data hygiene
Yes.
can be very expensive. Running AI at a large scale for an operation like a dealership and really getting the full value out of it, you have to pay for compute. Running your system updates, there's IO costs, in and out data. So dealers need to understand that like they're gonna probably be shifting money. They're not necessarily going to increase their overall budget. They're going to get efficiency with that money shift, but it's still going to cost. And that's just really the cost of doing business with a data strategy. Is some of those expenses on software and on data versus on paying an auction on a real-time bidding platform to buy an ad for someone you already have in your system that you just didn't know about.
Yeah. And you make good point that there isn't a number of credible studies to show how much a CDP can reduce costs, or is it a shifting of costs? Here's one thing I do know. We recently did a major CDP project, and one of the areas I've always been suspicious of is direct mail, because the direct mail companies charge by the piece. They're not charged by outcome. And for years, they've just had access to the DMS data. The dealer never knew if they deduped. The dealer never knew if they did vehicle updates to make sure people didn't move out of state. All they got was a bill for direct mail. That's all they got. Well, when we did the data hygiene project, we found that about 40% of the vehicles that were marked as owned by the consumers weren't anymore, right? So that what that does, that cuts down the number of direct mail pieces that you're sending out. We found out that, about 35 to 40% of the emails had to be updated. We were missing about 60% of the mobile phone numbers. You with me? But you can argue that for digital marketing with a pixel, maybe that doesn't save you a whole lot of money. And email marketing, you could say, well, it's not a high cost. But for direct mail,
Oh yeah.
when you're paying $1 or $2 a piece, in some cases even more. So the reason why I bring up this story, we started running some direct mail campaigns over the clean data, and I didn't have to say anything. The direct mail company and the general manager reached out to the executive team and said, I have no idea what you've done, but this is the best results we received per dollar, of the dollars we spent.
Incredible.
We spent less and we got significantly more response. Why? Because, hey, for dealers and anybody who's watching this interview today, know, hey, you move out of state, that dealer's still sending you service reminders, right? It's just silly. You sell the car to them and they're still sending you service or buyout offers. It's insane. So I'm hoping in 2025 to publish a number of actual case studies where we look at where the data savings are or the marketing savings
great.
are.
I'm glad you're doing that. I mean, I've no doubt that what you're saying is happening in any effort to improve that hygiene, but certainly at the level that you guys are doing it is going to result in value. And I think that the challenge is that we in the industry have to pay a price. We are sitting on, let's say, when did email emerge? I don't know what years it was. When was it common? Probably in the late 80s, like 90, early 90s, really started becoming
in the 90s for sure, right?
Let's say the 90s, right? So like we're paying the price of 30 years of data that's sitting around and hasn't really been dusted off. And so when you dust it off, you find a lot of things underneath. And the price to get that in shape is worth it because you will be so much more competitive and efficient going forward that it will be a different type of business, meaning it will become it's the price you have to pay to really modernize the business, to connect all the data silos.
Yes,
Them
amen.
into one, clean it up, and then unleash the activation with all the modern technology. And again, we talk about this, and dealers are like, I don't know, I read this concept out of critical, I think it's like language theory or something. It's this idea of like cruel optimism, where you kind of are it's this thing out of this concept called affect theory, but you're always like, you tell a kid, you could do it. You could stop picking up your phone, right? Just put it down. But you're not taking into account that the most brilliant scientists in the world are working 24/7 to figure out how to get my kid to watch another second on YouTube. And so like on the one hand, like it's true, you want to believe a person has agency, but on the other hand, you have to kind of weigh that agency with like what they're up against and not create this gap that's constantly disappointing them and make them feel like they're not. So I think the same thing with dealers. Like they could hear our conversation and say, oh, Aharon and Brian are like throwing all this stuff out there as if I could do it. If tomorrow I could snap my fingers and it would work. But guess what? This isn't cruel optimism. You literally can do this now. I know you could do it on my system, at least most of it, and the rest is going to come in the next few quarters. I know other systems that you work with, you could do it. So we're actually talking about things that can be done tomorrow if you have the will as a dealer to drive it.
Yeah, and I want to address two things because we have to reframe the way dealers think and vendors think. Dealers, I want you to think that if you really looked at your budget, you spend 90% of your budget each month on acquisition and 10% on your existing customers, which no other high value, high margin business would do. And it's time for you to get serious to realize that you have no idea if your emails are being delivered. You have no idea if that address is correct. You have no idea how many of your customers are missing a mobile phone. So even if you implemented a texting platform, you could reach. Imagine a world where you really take your customer data more seriously. And now I want to talk to the vendors. There are some vendors who have created walled gardens because they followed a pattern of previous companies that have just thumbed their nose up at dealers and thumb their nose at other vendors and say, I don't need to integrate, you're a competitor. We need to really reframe our thinking as a vendor community to say our customer is a dealer and the dealer's success is number one. And if my product is excellent, the dealer will choose my product over others. And this idea of an open API ecosystem has been bantered around for a long time. Yes, the Automotive Standards Council is a breakthrough model where now we have the majority of automotive technology sending the same event names. We're still cleaning up some mess, but we've made tremendous progress in the 2 years. But I think we have to realize that, hey, just like you did, you decoupled your CDP and marketing because it was, let's just say, semi-open, and a dealer was like, okay, if we use Full Path, I got to use them for marketing. Now you're just like, hey, you want to use our data platform? You want to use our audiences? Do you want to use our identity resolution? You want to do your own marketing? Great. We'll push the audiences in the Google, Facebook, go. You do it. That's a bold move. We need more people in the CRM community to be able to allow CDPs to update the status directly of a customer record with insights that the CDP has received from a real-time website update for a showroom visit or a third-party activation. We need email platforms, and especially the automotive ones, to actually have functional APIs that will send signals back to the CDP when an email bounces. And we need data hygiene companies to work with companies like yours to create easy ways for us to do real-time address correction, real-time email correction at an affordable rate, right? I mean, we need more of the vendor community to realize the CDP will be a core technology, and the companies that provide texting with AI on demand, email delivery bi-directional on demand, direct mail, not send me a CSV file, but real-time connections via API, website personalization based on signals from the CDP. If people really understood where we're going, we have an opportunity to completely reinvent automotive retail, the customer experience, profitability, efficiency. I'm going to continue to voice that that's in the best interest of the dealers, but I've been disappointed specifically with how slow the CRM companies have been to wake up and realize that the CDP is their best friend. They don't need to be a CDP. They just need to understand that they kind of position themselves as the frontline communications with a customer. We have way more data than the DMS and way more valuable signals than any other tool in a CDP. Let's work together. But Aharon, are you seeing the same thing? It's just like the CRMs are almost acting like the CDP as a competitor, and it's not.
I agree with you. I mean, I think if you look outside of auto, in almost every case, major CRM companies have acquired in CDPs and acquired in marketing automation, because they're really different animals. And I don't think that any CRM needs to be threatened by a CDP. In fact, it should be working to open up. I'll actually, I'm main to everything you said, but I'll reframe one thing. You use the words around the data you're talking about is customer data. And I think we need to expand that for dealers. Dealers often think of customers in that someone who's bought from me service or a vehicle. That's not what we're actually talking about. Meaning you and I in this conversation say customer, you're thinking of any CRM record over the past 10 years, anyone who's ever opted in and said, I'm willing to hear from you. That's what you're thinking about. And I think that is how dealers have to start thinking. And that data lives primarily in, not only though, unfortunately, it lives in a lot of places, but primarily in the CRM. So the most important first or the most important fortress of data that has to open up for in and out, so CDPs and marketers can write and read, is the CRM, because that's where the extension of the gold mine lies. Like, right, the customer database and the service database, yeah, that's great, but it's a very small part of the dealer's data, and we want to activate on the whole data set. We want to do strategy on the whole data set, not just on on that wonderful part, but a limited part of the data set. So I think you're totally on target there, and I'm sure it's going to happen, through advocacy and through hopefully, people understanding the best what's in their interest. I mean, there's a rational actor theory here, sort of question, right? So you've got CRMs, and as you pointed out, they're asking the question, what's the best thing for me to do, right? What protects my business? And so, yes, if they're like, okay, we want to expand to become everything, then in their mind, they're saying rationally, why would I give a competitor access? But I think what we're trying to say is that's actually an irrational, that's not good for your business as a CRM. You will be
That's
appreciated
right.
as a CRM if you enable dealers to link into all the other infrastructure that, let's be realistic, you're not going to build, or you're not going to build well. That's the way I would frame it up. And I see it all the time. CRMs are releasing stuff all the time that looks like stuff FullPath does, that looks like stuff, Four Eyes does, our friends over at Four Eyes, all the other companies out
Yeah.
there. It's never, it's just like it's unfortunately a little bit too gimmicky, because what they really are is a CRM. They shouldn't have to try to be everything. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's where the ego comes into play and the promises. I can't tell you how many companies feeling threatened in a rational or irrational moment release a press release and, oh, we're going to add this, we're going to add this, and it's all vaporware. And years go by and nothing happens, and who ends up losing is the dealer who was waiting for some promised integration.
Yep.
Well, Aharon, one of the things that we are hoping this conversation does is challenge dealers to think about their first party data, really look at their marketing budget, say, how much money am I spending to keep my customer records up to date, know when my customers are back on my website, send them timely communication, personalized message. And when they look at it, they're going to be like, wow, I'm not really doing much at all. And that's why I'm encouraging dealers to come out to the Modern Retailing Conference, because we will be talking about AI in sales and service. We are going to be talking about first party data activation. We're going to be talking about first party data management, data hygiene. We're going to talk about new sales processes that data can empower, and a big area which I think is growing, how AI and data is going to change the website experience to fill some of the gaps that we know right now. Our websites are poor converters. I mean, they're horrible. They would get a score outside of automotive as an F on how they convert and engage customers. So we have a lot to talk about, and FullPath is one of our sponsors. You are ready to step up and really educate dealers and show them the potential. As you mentioned, what's available today, it's just going to get better. But any dealer who believes with me that there will be three core technologies to manage data: the DMS, the CRM, and the CDP. Whether it's a CDP, a CDEP, or a CDXP, a customer data platform, we don't have to worry about acronyms, but it's going to be discussed at the Modern Retailing Conference. Ron, you've been to a number of conferences. For dealers who have never been to the Modern Retailing Conference, what would you say to encourage them to attend?
Well, I'd say that what I like the most there is you have a lot of high level practitioners who come together and are very willing to share, meaning it sort of reminds me of the early days of, some other conferences I won't mention that are maybe a little less robust now. So you have like high level digital practitioners from the dealers who are actually in the room, and they're doing things that we learn from and everyone learns from, and the conversations are just really, really good. So that's the first thing I'd say, is that people can expect and should come for that. And then I think again on the content, what you're getting, you're coming into kind of, it's not a smorgasbord. If that's even that's a common word, a smorgasbord.
Yeah.
It's not a smorgasbord. I didn't know if that was my Yiddish. I don't know if that's English or Yiddish. But anyways, it's not a
Yep.
smorgasbord. I don't even know what language. Hungarian. I have no idea. But anyways, it's a conference with a bit of a thesis. And so I think I always prefer someone to like give me a view than just tell me, here's like the way, like lots of little
Here's an
different.
all-eat buffet, right?
Yeah, there's a thesis. There's a thesis there. There's like, look, this is where the future is going in one person and the other speaker's views, and you're curating it and you're saying, here's where the future is going, and we want to try to really go deep, not shallow and broad. We want to go deep on these couple themes that we think are important for the future. Therefore, when you come out of it, you have more of a ability to like really have context and start making decisions. So I'd say those two things, the community of practice is really high level, and then you ultimately are going to get a thesis on where things are going and enough depth to have context to make decisions going forward versus, again, a very shallow understanding that doesn't necessarily let you make intelligent decisions. So that would be my pitch for MRC.
Yeah, and listen, the great news is a lot of the tech companies, their CEOs or head of development are there, so dealers can talk deeply and ask for those harder personalizations or integration questions. And if you've never been to the show, you should check out the schedule. It's November 17th, 18th, 19th in the beautiful O Hotel in Palm Beach, Florida. The weather in November is gorgeous. So just go to the modernretailingconference.com, get your tickets. It sells out every year. I don't have to oversell it. The conference is open to dealers and allied industry. Allied industry tickets end September 30th. In the month of October and November, only dealer and OEM tickets are sold. So act accordingly. Book your room at the O because the O room block sells out every year as well. But this is the place to come to learn to take your dealership to the next level. And if this is the first time you're listening to one of my podcasts, you should know that there are dozens of interviews from all the speakers and innovators and disruptors that are coming to the Modern Retailing Conference. So just search for the Brian Pash podcast, and more importantly, listen to the other speakers like Aharon and his team will be there, who will be bringing their perspective, their solutions, their insights to help dealers succeed. Aharon, it's always been great to chat with you. I wish I could spend like a week with you and your dev team just to kind of brainstorm. We'll make that happen one day. In the meantime,
you're always welcome. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in the meantime, I'll see you in November. And for all the dealers listening in, thanks for your time. And of course, if you have any questions on what FullPath can do, just go to fullpath.com and schedule a demo. Thanks for your time. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time on another podcast interview.